So hopefully you recognize this as being a circle. I'll sketch it for you real quick. Negative 6 sines of theta means it has a diameter of 6 units. And because it's negative, that means it's along the negative y-axis with a center at 0, -3, and a radius of 3. So those are some things we know. Because it's -6, it opens down and sine along the y-axis. Okay, and has a diameter of 6. So I want to take this polar thing and write it as a rectangular thing with the center at 0, -3 and a radius of 3. So let's go through all of the steps that we need to do in order to make that happen. So our conversions are x equals r times the cosine of theta, y equals r times the sine of theta, and r squared equals x squared plus y squared. So I need to find some of these things in order to be able to replace them with their rectangular counterparts. So I have sine here, it's missing the r, and I have an r here, which I would like to be r squared. So the first step we're going to do is multiply both sides by r. That gives you an r squared on the left and a -6r times the sine of theta on the right. So with one quick multiplication, I now have a polar equivalent on both sides of my equation. So I replace r squared with x squared plus y squared, and I replace r sine of theta with y. Everything else stays the same. Okay, now this equation is okay. It doesn't really tell you much about the circle. Okay, x squared plus y squared is definitely a circle part. So we're going to do a couple of more steps so that we can actually figure out what's going on with our circle center and radius, because neither one of those things we know. So we're going to add this to both sides. So x squared plus 6y plus y squared equals 0. And you can clearly see that the radius is not 0, so we have to do some manipulation over here. And we're going to do that by, oops, let me erase that. And put the y next to the y squared like it's supposed to be. There you go. Y squared plus 6y, that's better, equals 0. So we're going to complete the square on these y values so that I can factor it. Now if you remember completing the square, the number that goes in there is half of your b value squared. And half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. So I add 9 to both sides, which makes this a perfect square trinomial. And that factors to y plus the square root of 9, quantity squared, equals 9. Now this is in fact a circle equation where you can clearly identify the radius and the center, which in this case are 0, -3 as the center, and 3 is the radius, which is exactly what we started off with up there in polar form.